Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. It was a quiet late afternoon on a quiet city street. The last rays of sunlight reflected off the asphalt, damp from a recent rain. A black woman, elegantly dressed, walked confidently toward her car, keys clutched in her hand, hurried but serene. Little did she know that her path would soon cross that of two police officers whose arrogance and contempt for others knew no bounds. For no good reason, one of the policemen, a cruel smile on his lips, approached and, to joke around with his colleague, abruptly lifted the woman's skirt. He burst out laughing, certain of his superiority, thinking that this small, humiliating act would have no consequences. His colleague, embarrassed but amused, played along, chuckling softly at this joke. But the woman, frozen for a moment by shock and humiliation, soon revealed her true self. Her gaze darkened and her posture straightened with immediate authority. She was a respected captain in the department, known for her courage, composure, and integrity. These police officers thought they were provoking a simple reaction of fear or submission, but they had just unleashed a storm they couldn't control. In an instant, the light-hearted, mocking atmosphere turned to oppressive silence. The laughter froze, replaced by the palpable tension of those who knew they had crossed a dangerous line. The woman, with a calm but menacing gesture, made it clear that their arrogance would cost them dearly. This brief moment of mockery would transform into a dramatic turn of events whose consequences would mark their lives forever. What they believed to be a simple game turned out to be the first mistake in a series that would lead them to confront an implacable justice system. The police officers stepped back slightly, surprised by the woman's immediate reaction. The captain, her eyes blazing with anger, gave no sign of the humiliation she had just suffered. "You think that's funny?" she said, her voice calm but icy, cutting through the air like a blade. "Lifting the skirt of a citizen, or worse, a colleague, is a crime. And you'll regret it." One of the police officers tried to justify himself, stammering. It was just a joke, ma'am." She stared at him, implacable. "A joke? Do you think your uniform gives you the right to humiliate others? You've just crossed a line, and now you'll be held accountable for your actions." Tension rose as she pulled out her phone. She immediately called the police chief and filed a detailed report of the incident, providing names, badge numbers, and all the relevant details. The officers began to feel the weight of their mistake. What they had taken for a simple game was now turning into an official investigation against them. Passers-by who were beginning to approach watched the scene, some shocked, others curious. One murmured, "Wow, she's a captain, isn't she?" The captain never took her eyes off the two men. Every movement, every breath seemed calculated. She knew exactly how to turn their arrogance into public humiliation, but she remained calm. Karma, this time, was going to strike in a way they had never imagined. The police officers exchanged a nervous glance. They felt as if the ground was opening up beneath their feet. Their mocking laughter from just moments ago seemed to belong to another life, to another person. Now, they faced an authority they could not intimidate, and the outcome seemed inevitable. That day, a clear lesson was taught: power is not measured by a uniform or a badge, but by integrity and respect for others. And these police officers would soon discover this the hard way. A few minutes later, the captain had gathered all the evidence, witnesses, CCTV footage from nearby businesses, and even messages recorded on her phone. She knew that for these officers, there would be no simple reprimand. She had them sit down in the police station office, still calm, while the tension in the room became almost palpable. The two men looked at each other, aware that their arrogance had just backfired. "You will be suspended immediately," she announced firmly. "And an internal investigation has been launched. All your behavior will be examined, your humiliating gesture, your arrogant attitude, your lack of respect due to everyone." The police officers tried to defend themselves, but every word spoken seemed to put them in further trouble. "Captain, it was a mistake." One of them stammered. "A mistake?" she repeated, her voice becoming sharper. "You think toying with the dignity of others is a minor error? You'll learn the price of contempt." While she was speaking, her phone vibrated. It was the police chief, confirming that the suspension was immediate and that the case would be brought before the disciplinary committee. The two officers understood that they had just crossed a point of no return. The captain stood up and looked them straight in the eyes. "You were wrong to underestimate me. Your arrogance won't protect you. And believe me, everyone will know what you did." The men lowered their eyes in shame. The pride that had driven them to humiliate someone was now replaced by fear and regret. That day, they learned that true power lies not in the uniform, but in the dignity and courage of those who know how to stand up for what is right. Outside, passers-by who had witnessed the scene whispered among themselves. The news would spread quickly, and these police officers would have to face the public reckoning for their actions. The next morning, the news had already begun circulating throughout the police station. The captain's colleagues murmured in the corridors, some shocked, others impressed by her composure. The two suspended and humiliated officers avoided all eye contact, aware that their reputations were crumbling. But the captain wasn't satisfied with just an internal suspension. She contacted local journalists and provided all the details of the incident, videos, witness statements, and irrefutable proof of their shameful behavior. A few hours later, the media had done their job. On social media, the images and the stories spread like wildfire. Comments poured in, indignation, anger, but also admiration for the captain who had bravely confronted these men. The hashtag justice for the captain began to trend. The police officers, who thought they had escaped justice by remaining in the shadows, suddenly found themselves exposed to the entire nation. Local television stations requested interviews, and their superiors were forced to respond publicly. The image of two men abusing their authority over a simple laugh became the symbol of unacceptable arrogance. In the captain's office, she calmly followed the unfolding events. Each new comment, each new publication reinforced the weight of public justice. The two men now faced not only official punishment, but also collective shame. "That's exactly what was needed," she murmured, her gaze determined. "They must understand that no one is above respect and dignity." Outside, the city seemed to change. Passers-by talked about the incident, and the story even inspired other victims to speak out against similar abuse. This small, cruel act, which had begun as a joke, transformed into a powerful reminder that courage and justice can bring down even the most arrogant. The two police officers, meanwhile, were beginning to realize that their lives had just been turned upside down. The suspension and public humiliation were only the beginning. The real price they would pay for their contempt was yet to come. A few days later, the two police officers were summoned before the disciplinary committee. The room was solemn, with representatives of the police, lawyers, and several witnesses present. The murmurs in the room betrayed curiosity and general indignation. The two men entered, heads bowed, avoiding everyone's gaze. Their arrogance had vanished, replaced by palpable fear. The captain, however, was there as the primary witness, calm and dignified, wearing her impeccable uniform and displaying undeniable authority. The chairman of the committee took the floor. "Gentlemen, you are here to answer for your unacceptable behavior. Humiliating a citizen, and moreover a colleague, constitutes a serious violation of ethics and the law. Your actions have damaged the integrity of our institution and the public's trust." The police officers attempted further justifications, but each word seemed to incriminate them further. Witness testimonies, videos, and media coverage of the incident made any defense impossible. After several hours of hearings, the verdict was delivered: permanent suspension, loss of certain bonuses, and a permanent entry on their professional file. The commission emphasized that their behavior would never be forgotten and that their careers were irreparably damaged. The captain stood up and declared, "Let this serve as an example. Respect is not optional. Abuse of power has a price, and today you are paying yours." The police officers left the room, dejected and ashamed, while the story continued to circulate in the media. Their arrogance, which had begun as a simple gesture of mockery, had led to the end of their careers and public disgrace. Outside, the captain observed the crowd of journalists and citizens gathered there. Her face reflected both gravity and satisfaction at seeing justice served. The laughter of the police officers had been replaced by the silence of shame. Karma had struck, and this lesson would remain etched in everyone's memory. The story of the two police officers humiliating a woman, for a laugh, had now spread beyond the city limits. In schools, cafes, and even on social media, the story circulated, accompanied by a clear message: respect and dignity are essential, and no one is above the rules. The captain, for her part, received messages of support from everywhere. Citizens thanked her for her courage and for standing up to arrogance and abuse of power. Some young police officers even came to her for advice, wanting to learn how to act with integrity in difficult situations. In the neighborhood where the incident occurred, the effect was immediate. Residents felt inspired to denounce injustices and protect their community. Business owners installed cameras and implemented protocols to ensure everyone's safety. The voices of citizens, once silenced by fear, began to be heard. Despite her sudden media attention, the captain remained humble. She used her experience to organize training workshops on respect and justice, showing her colleagues and younger generations that the strength of a uniform does not lie in the imposed authority, but in the protection and respect of others. Meanwhile, the two police officers, whose careers were now ruined, faced not only professional repercussions but also public scrutiny of their behavior. Their arrogance had been replaced by shame and regret. They understood, too late, that the consequences of their actions went far beyond a simple suspension. The incident became a symbol. Throughout the city, and even beyond, citizens were reminded that courage and dignity can triumph over the abuse of power. The captain had become much more than a figure of authority; she had become a living symbol of justice, strength, and courage in the face of injustice. And so, what had begun as a humiliating and cruel gesture transformed into a powerful lesson, reminding everyone that true power lies in respect, dignity, and integrity, and that no one, ever, should be underestimated.